ora, I'm Zoe George and welcome to Fair Play, a podcast covering women in sport from athletes and results to current affairs and issues. If you're new to the podcast, kia ora, welcome. You can find our entire back catalogue at s1e1.com under New Zealand podcast section. There you can also find a range of other fantastic shows from around the world and various sports, bringing you the latest in news from women in sport. And you can follow us on social media at Wisp Sports. This month, as we head into summer, I think, it's all about cricket. We've got guest host Whitefern, Sophie, Devine. We'll hear from her very soon. We have two major feature interviews. First, Sarah Beaman, the woman behind the study into women's cricket for New Zealand cricket. It's been a year since that was released, so what's been done and are we any closer to being treated equally? Staying with cricket, we talk briefly with Whitefern's coach Haidee Tiffen about this year's tour to the UAE to face Pakistan. Then today's other major interview is with Dr. Sarah Beable. The sports physician is presenting at the Sports Medicine Conference in Hamilton later this month, and she's done some research around why it's important we have a menstrual cycle and how to optimise our performance around it. Before we start though, g'day Sophie.
G'day.
It's been a while.
It has been.
Let's not talk about the World Cup.
No.
Next question. Australia, you've been over there and you've been playing cricket there, is that right?
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Weather's been great and being able to train outdoors every day is a bit of a luxury coming back here, and it's not as great.
What about the level of cricket over there?
Oh, look, the competition's great. I mean, the depth of numbers is huge, I think, especially compared to here, and the resources that they're putting into the domestic game is just massive. I think we've seen over the last sort of 6 to 12 months a lot of movement in Cricket Australia in terms of their investment in the women's game and the pay and things like that, so it's a great time to be over there.
Were you over there when they broke the players' strike and agreed for more payment to the players?
No. I was still over in the UK when that happened, but a lot of the Aussie girls obviously there as well at the World Cup. So, we're definitely keeping a close eye on it because obviously it does affect us quite a lot. We've got quite a few Kiwi girls that are playing over there this summer and have done. So, yeah, we were definitely following it with keen interest. And
so as a New Zealander, you can go over there and get paid well?
Very well.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely for, I guess, women's cricket. It's by far the best money that you can earn in the world. So it's
well, the
exciting.
pot for women's cricket in Australia now is $50 million.
I think that's about right. Yeah.
It's a lot. Would it be as much to say that it would tempt you over there?
Yeah, it's definitely something that's popped into my mind lately. I think the resources that are over there and facilities, I'm really lucky where I'm based in Adelaide, where they've got such great structure set up that it would definitely be something that I'd contemplate. It just sort of depends what happens back here home. I'm obviously really loyal to Wellington and New Zealand cricket, but just seeing what's best for me at the end of the day.
Well, a number of the Silver Ferns have gone to Australia, which means they can no longer play for New Zealand. Is that something that could possibly happen in cricket as well? Yeah,
I'm not too sure. I think that's something that New Zealand cricket have actually been really supportive of, as they've allowed us this time to go away and play in these sort of leagues, not just in Australia, but they've allowed us to go and play in the UK as well, which is fantastic. They know that they probably can't match, I guess, the money that the Aussies and the English can, so they've allowed us, I think it's about a 3-month window during the year to go out and play in these leagues and earn a bit of extra coin.
Well, sticking with cricket, it's been 12 months since New Zealand cricket printed independent research into the way women have been treated in the sport. Sarah Beaman conducted the research where she talked to women in the game who are players, administrators, supporters, including you, I think, Sophie, and in the sports media. What she found was that for the past 25 years, women have been neglected by New Zealand cricket. CEO David White acknowledged when the report was released that it was not good enough and said changes need to be made. So what's actually happened during the past 24 months, and will we see any type of parity any time soon? And what are the long-term goals? Hi Sarah, thanks so much for joining us today.
No problem, though.
What were some of your major findings last year?
Oh, it was clearly, not a lot had been focused on in terms of the women's game itself, in terms of playing the game, but the research that they'd requested was looking at all levels of engagement women in the game of cricket. So fans, spectators, people involved in officiating, coaching, all of the different aspects of it. We found there was growth in the juniors space, but there was certainly decline in the youth, and not a lot of players at the senior women's level from a playing perspective. in terms of representation in coaching and officiating things, a lot to be desired. And just generally it's taken the eye off the ball, I guess, of the opportunity of engaging women in the game of cricket over the past few years.
Why has this happened?
To be honest, it wasn't about blaming and trying to find the reasons why. It was actually trying to find facts about what was the current state a year ago and what were the opportunities, because New Zealand Cricket wanted to come up with a strategy for how they could improve engaging women in all aspects of the game. And so it was really actually saying, what are the facts we can put behind this to actually make some good choices that are going to make a difference? So I didn't really, to be honest, go into understanding, who was to blame or what was to blame.
It said the findings last year that women filled only 6% of governance roles compared to 38% in 1993. A year on from your research, what are we looking at now for the number of women in governance roles in cricket?
Yeah, so that was at the 38% was at the national level back then, because they had it was just after amalgamation, and so obviously a significant decline in that period of time. Now there's been a massive shift. So at the national level it's 33%. At the regional level it's now 20%, and I think we're about nearly 10% at the district association level. So overall, we've gone from having only 11 females across the board at those three levels of cricket and governance to 30 in the period of a year. So there's been a significant shift in understanding that we actually need the females around the table to actually help make different decisions and actually really look at the game in different ways.
How do we attract more women to cricket, particularly in governance?
Oh, I think there's plenty of women out there that are, keen to be involved in governance and pursuing governance careers. Like, it's certainly not a lack of women. So it's really just giving them the opportunity and understanding that cricket is actually willing to make that change, is making change, and wants to understand and have different perspectives around the table to engage with them and be involved in making those decisions and change for the future. So, I think it's just probably more awareness. And one of the things that a lot of the associations have done is around changing processes. So a lot of it was, yes, we want women, but we don't know where to find them, which was really just about understanding, some of the traditional ways that we advertise for roles, the processes around board appointments were unconsciously biased. And so a lot of the shifts that the major associations and things have been making is actually looking at those things and actually going, wow, are we making people aware of the roles through typical governance channels? And, do we have women on our board appointments panels? Do we make sure that if we're working with agencies that they're providing shortlists that are 50-50 male-female, and some of those practicalities that give capable women an equal chance of having a go at these governance roles.
Hey Sarah, it's Sophie here.
Hey Sophie.
Look, I've got a question. Do you think it's received the attention that you were sort of hoping for?
Yeah, I do think it has. I mean, it's been a real approach to actually try and get all, certainly in New Zealand cricket and at the associations and the cricketing family, a real sense of ownership of saying we all have to look at what we do and how we do it differently. And this is an area that we've ignored or certainly, deprioritised compared to other things. And so I think it's been really interesting that from New Zealand can only do so much. It can't make associations do stuff. You can't, force the cricket family to do things. But there's a real, journey and a real desire and awareness to change that all of the cricket family's gone along. So, this shift from 11 to 30 women in just 1 year it really shows that, cricket is getting it and is understanding, hey, we've got a shift and we really want to make that shift.
What about a quota, though? I mean, you said that they're not going to take, women, or we're not going to take women just because they're women. We have to be qualified, right? But is there a need for a quota to ensure that we get more women on boards, around the board table in these positions?
I think to be honest, the initial progress shows that probably not, because there's been no requirement. I mean, we've just New Zealand Cricket's just set some targets that they're trying to aim for now, but there hasn't been targets that cricket's been working under over the last year to drive this change. It's just about being, building the knowledge and processes to be able to help them do what they need to do. So the research when I did it was across, not just in cricket, but across the board in business, etc. A few European countries have tried targets that have been effective in the business space, but there's no definitive either way to say whether targets are more effective than actually just, cultural change and engaging in the change management to get organisations to understand why and how to make that change rather than forcing it. I think the carrot is more effective than the stick, is kind of the general sense of things.
What about the future? Obviously there's a really good base now. You've found out what's happened, what needs to be done, and progress is starting to be made. What needs to be done in the long term?
I think it's carrying on the journey, to be honest. There's been a lot of progress in a lot of areas. And I guess the governance thing is exciting because if you change the people at the decision-making table, and one of the other things that cricket's done is getting surveys from the customer, essentially, to understand what are players, what are people involved and engaged in cricket want. You combine those two things that you will inherently drive change in the long term. It's not just about a quick fix, tick, have we got a board member that's a female. It's not about that. It's about driving towards change. So, our targets in the governance space is that we're moving towards at least 3 females on every board around the country, and it's about having that. It's also about having the value of equity and inclusivity, and it's also about having the whole board, including the chairs, engaged in understanding and how to facilitate a diverse group and facilitate getting the good thinking out of that group for the best of the game. So all those things, that's part of what certainly my part of the project is trying to drive. It's that shift in that raising standard of governance, which is just the same across the board.
Interestingly, cricket has not been seen as a career path for women. What about pay equity? Is this something that is going to be worked towards in cricket in New Zealand?
I'm not directly involved in that side of things, but I would suspect yes. The view is to head that direction. It is a journey, and I guess the reality is, you've got Sophie. You were talking about the big dollars in Australia, and they've got something like $350 million sort of annual revenue, whereas New Zealand's about $50 million. So it's a completely different financial space. So they've certainly been able to take a step that, as you say, no other country's been able to do. There's been progress in the last, since the Women in Cricket report and slightly before that, in terms of the pay that the New Zealand players get. And I think that will incrementally increase over time. And also, I guess, as Sophie indicated, providing opportunities for those players to be able to, if they're good enough to capitalise on those other, England and Australian leagues, making sure the schedules allow that opportunity for them to make that career path.
Thanks so much, Sarah. We look forward to chatting to you maybe in another 6 months after the season's finished to see what else has been done and what's been achieved. Your research is greatly appreciated.
Yes, sir.
Sticking with cricket, research from the ICC released this week. As many as 92% of sports fans in India believe they had seen an increase in media coverage of women's cricket in the last 2 years, while 66% in England and Wales, 66% in Australia, 58% in South Africa and 50% in New Zealand felt the same way. Sophie, they were saying this World Cup just gone was so popular. It's been spectacularly good for women's cricket.
Yeah, and that was definitely something that you felt being over there. I know being over there in the lead up to the World Cup, you could tell just the coverage that was out there, and it wasn't just in the media, it was what you're seeing in the streets, what you're hearing people talk about. Being involved was fantastic, and you knew it was going to be something special. Not just the cricket itself, but you knew the whole event was something special, and I think these figures that have been released are fantastic. It just shows how much interest is actually in the women's game if you're putting it out there.
Well, they also said 70% of those questioned have said they'll take a greater interest in the women's game, and more so, half of their children felt inspired to try the game or play more cricket.
I think at the end of the day, that's one of the biggest things as a player is what you want, is you want to inspire. Doesn't matter if they're boy, girl, female, whatever, as long as they're playing the game, that's what we want.
Yeah, and it's a fun game, let's face it.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, we're going to talk with Haidee Tiffen shortly because the White Ferns were named this last couple of weeks. You're in the team, but there are some people who aren't. And this is one question that I want to ask about fitness. What kind of fitness training do you guys do, and what's the level of fitness before we talk to Haidee about the tour?
Yeah, look, I think it's something that cricket probably has taken a bit of slack for over the last, 5-10 years, I think. People just think that you stand around in the field for a couple of hours and you have pies for lunch and things like that. But no, look, it's definitely changing now. To be able to go away for a 3 or 4 week tour and train and play day in, day out, it takes a massive toll on your body, especially when you go into countries like India, Sri Lanka, like us going over to the UAE. Your body has got to be in tip-top shape, otherwise you won't last. It's as simple as that. You will not last a full tour. So for us, fitness has been a massive thing, and it has been a real focus probably the last 12, 24 months.
Well, we're joined by White Ferns coach Haidee Tiffen. Kia ora, Haidee.
Hello, how are you?
Great. So fitness, we were just talking about. Rachel Priest and Erin Birmingham haven't been chosen or selected for this tour. Why was that?
Oh, well, firstly, Erin was unavailable due to injury, so she's currently got a knee injury which she's going to be rehabbing. So that's Erin. And Rachel, yeah, definitely around her fitness, we're feeling like that at the moment we need more from her. We feel that the level of international cricket, the physical and mental demands that are needed at that international level, we've shown at the World Cup that the bar has just been risen, and we need Rachel to go away and focus on that game, on that part of the game, and work hard around that. And really, as I said, we're really trying to lift the standard across our team, because it is an area that we are lagging behind a little bit.
Before we talk about the UAE, what have you learned from, can I call it, your failings at was it a failing at the World Cup?
Well, look, it was clearly disappointing, and if you asked every single player and support staff, we went there to win. And so if you want to call it a fail, yeah, in that regard, absolutely. But success is not just around bringing home trophies. It's part of it. There's been a lot of successes throughout that campaign as well as a lot of learnings that we need to take forward if we want to continue to be a competitive team, but not just competitive. We're really wanting to be world class and win world championships. So, we know that was a disappointing campaign for us. We can perform better than we did.
You're heading off to the UAE to play against Pakistan. This is the first time I understand that we've played them on their home turf, which is in the UAE. What kind of conditions are you expecting?
Oh, I think when you're touring that area of the world, it's certainly going to be a lot hotter than it is here. The wickets probably tend to play a lot slower. We're playing on the same ground as well across the 7 games. Obviously, we won't be on the same pitch, but we'll get a really good understanding around the conditions when we get there. But definitely, it'll be a lot slower. From the information that we've had from in discussions with Mike Hesson and some of the other women's teams that have been there, and just the recent discussions that I've had, it's going to play a little bit slower and potentially take a bit of spin. But that's exciting. That's part of the challenge. That's why we have a home and away series where we are, we are having to face other teams in the conditions that they're used to playing in, and that's what our team needs to be up for, that challenge, and it's an exciting challenge.
Yeah, you're playing against Pakistan, who's actually being coached by a New Zealander, Mark Coles, who has coached you, Sophie, I understand. Is that right?
Yeah, I've had a little bit to do with him. He was obviously involved here in Wellington a couple of years ago now. So, yeah, it'll be interesting there. I don't know how much he's seen of the Pakistani girls, but look, it's exciting that we've got a Kiwi involved somewhere on the international stage. So, yeah, it'll be definitely an interesting one to see if that sort of Kiwi style shows through with the Pakistani girls.
How do you think you're going to go in this environment?
Yeah, look, I think, as Haidee said, it's one of the biggest challenges, going somewhere where it's going to be hot most of all. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for us, especially coming from this weather here in New Zealand. And as well, the conditions over here, the pitch conditions, we've probably seen a little bit. Spinning, turning wickets, it's something that you're probably more familiar with in the subcontinent. And Tiff, I guess that's probably a question to you as well, is what are you sort of expecting to achieve from this tour? I know team usually sets a few key targets when we go away on these sort of tours. What do you think are the key things that we want to get out of this tour?
Oh, there's a couple. One is definitely we want to go over there and win both the T20 and ODI series. Obviously, the championship points up for grabs. Whilst we automatically qualify for the next World Cup, it's still a championship that we want to do our best in and gain those points in order to start this championship off really well. So that's one. Number two, I think, is really an opportunity for us to grow our ability to play spin in conditions that perhaps we're not best suited, that we're not used to, sorry. So I think spin has sort of dominated over the last few years in the women's game, so a big focus on that. I think certainly around implementation of what we've learned around a game plan that we believe is going to win the next World Cup. We've reviewed based on looking at the trends over the last 4 years and the last championship and what we believe is going to win the next World Cup. So real focus on the implementation of that game plan and the roles that will be delivered in order to execute that game plan. So they're the key areas. I think then we'll continually, as the championship goes on, we'll review our game plan and know, is this working? Is this relevant? It's a continual reviewing process around what is needed for us to best prepare ourselves for our own World Cup back here in New Zealand.
Well, I wish you all the very best. Thank you so much, White Ferns coach Haidee Tiffen.
Pleasure.
Shortly, we'll speak with Dr. Sarah Beable, but what are you hoping to achieve yourself, Sophie? What are your personal targets for this tour to the UAE?
Yeah, I think firstly it is, just as Haidee said, we go to win. I think no matter who we're playing, where we're playing, the key of our team and me personally is we want to win and we want to succeed and we want to do well individually. So for me, it's wanting to contribute to our team's success on the park. So whether that's scoring runs, taking wickets, and being in a new environment, never been there before. Been a lot through transit in Dubai, but to be playing in Sharjah there and be based there for, I think it's about 3.5 weeks, is going to be really interesting. It's definitely going to be a real test of the physical, but also the mental side as well, being somewhere where we haven't been before and it's not much like home. So, look, I'm really looking forward to it.
And then what's the summer looking like for you?
Busy. I get back and I think I have 3 days at home and then I'm off to Aussie again to play in another round of their domestic league before coming back here for a week and playing for Wellington Blaze in our national domestic competition, and then I head back over again to Australia for the next couple of months and play in the Women's Big Bash League over there for the Adelaide Strikers.
That's huge. Like, that is just growing and growing every year, isn't it? It's massive.
It's huge. I mean, they just keep finding ways to keep growing the game. I know this year we're taking it out to, I guess, the regions a little bit, so we're heading up to Alice Springs actually, which is going to be interesting because they said it's going to be about 45 degrees. So I feel like I'm getting a bit of practice going to the UAE. So
I think so.
Look, it is. It's a fantastic product that they've got over there, and they really are doing it well. So hopefully, it's a great opportunity for me to go and further my game.
Could this be an opportunity for New Zealand domestic teams to actually just be part of the Big Bash? Or are we not good enough?
That's definitely something that's been raised both on the female and the male side as can we get a Kiwi team in there? I'm not too sure, to be honest. I think it'd be great. We obviously saw it with the netball a couple of years ago, having the Trans-Tasman comp. I think if we could have something similar on the cricket side, it would be awesome. Even if we played, the winners of the Women's Big Bash plays the winner of our 2020 league. I think something like that would be fantastic. We're seeing a little bit more of, we had the Melbourne Stars come over last year to Wellington. I think the Auckland Aces are going over to Hobart, I think it is, or they've linked up with one of the Big Bash sides, which, it makes sense to be able to link in and use each other and get a bit of practice in before the season starts.
Let's move on now. Later this month, groups from around New Zealand will come together to discuss the latest advances in sports medicine. The conference on in Hamilton has everything from physiotherapy to psychology, nutrition and sociology. A workshop focusing on women in sport is being led in part by our next guest, Dr. Sarah Beable, who has been, until recently, the medical director for Cycling New Zealand. She's also worked with the Sevens rugby team, Silver Ferns, ITM Cup, Super 14 and Rugby World Cups. Hello, Sarah. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, you're welcome.
So one of the topics you'll be presenting on is the importance of the menstrual cycle for well-being and performance. What's been the view of menstrual cycles in the past?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I think over the last decade there's been quite a shift from, I guess, most sporting people or most women being on the oral contraceptive pill to a bit more of a shift of actually working out, because that gives you a bit of a false menstrual cycle. You don't know that you're definitely making enough estrogen to have a natural cycle. So we've probably had more of a shift to working out that people are actually having, kind of unmedicated menstrual cycles, because it relates quite importantly to energy availability, which is something that females are probably underdoing a little bit, which a lot of research has gone into that over the last few years.
Well, it's a natural thing for our bodies, isn't it, to experience? We're women. So why have athletes tried to stop it in the past?
Yeah, I think there was a bit of a concept of, mainly it's because it's a hassle, that you can imagine people running around in togs as triathletes and just even having the hassle of heavy bleeding and what they need to do if they've got an all-day cycling race, for example, of the logistics of that when you've got your period. And so that's probably extended from people avoiding it on race day to wanting to avoid it altogether while they're training. So you get that whole practice of running oral contraceptive packets together so that people wouldn't actually get periods. In part, that's actually not such a bad thing if you know that if they're off the pill that they can get a menstrual cycle straight away. So you know that they actually have that energy availability for their bodies to work normally. But I tend to make sure we've got that ticked off before I ever encourage that kind of practice.
So other than the oral contraception, what else are women using to moderate their cycles?
Yeah, so I actually think there's been I'm quite an advocate of the Mirena intrauterine device, the IUD. The Mirena's been quite game-changing for quite a lot of people, particularly if they've had painful periods, what they call dysmenorrhea, or people that suffer from endometriosis, for example. So the Mirena just has a local, small dose of progesterone, which only goes just as a local effect, not systemically in the body. And so that's got a lot more popularity recently, and so it tends to also reduce the bleeding, and some people don't even have bleeding with the Mirena. So that's become a real viable tool for athletes and people that have some menstrual issues or a different form of contraception.
For those who are just going all natural, how do we optimise our performance around our menstrual cycle?
Yeah, so I think the key thing is actually working out when you actually have cycles, which we actually probably don't have a good handle on. And there's all these incredible cycle trackers out now on all these smartphones that give us a bit more handle on when we should actually be getting the bleeding time and when you might be ovulating. And having that, and even having that knowledge of when you're actually due for your next period and making sure that it is when it's around supposed to be, that not only having regular periods optimises your well-being and feeling of, I guess, vitality, but there's quite a bit of evidence to say that actually having your period around the time that you race might actually be performance beneficial due to some hormone surges that happen at that time.
Oh, really?
And actually changing that messaging to people rather than we've gone from, oh no, I've got my period on race day to, hey, wicked, that's actually a good thing. You're going to go great tomorrow. So there's been quite a shift in that, and I think we should be embracing that a little bit rather than always trying to suppress it and not be like mini men or little men. Actually embrace the fact that, females are different.
We are not mini men, we are not little men. In a sociological setting, sport was created originally for men. So when women come and play sport, we kind of... Hopefully it's 2017, things are starting to change. This is a bit of a hard question, Sophie, and you don't have to answer it. But is this an issue that is raised with the team?
I don't think it's really spoken about.
Why not?
Well, I don't know. It's funny because we all go through it, don't we? It's sort of a bit funny. I think there is a little bit of a, it's a bit taboo topic to talk about. It's a little bit embarrassing, isn't it? And people don't really like to mention it. But when you're away on tour, gee whiz, those barriers break down over time because, I know me personally, I suffer from really bad periods and it can knock me out for a day or two. And that, as Sarah was saying, I mean, you don't want that when you've got a really important game coming up. You don't want to be in the fetal position in your bed, holding onto your hot water bottle. You want to be making sure that your body's in tip-top shape. But, I mean, this sort of information is fantastic. Like, I'm here listening thinking, geez, I wish I knew some of this stuff, It is. It's really interesting to find out, well, how can I actually best use it to help me perform, to help me train, to, give me a bit of a heads up. But
well, that's why we're having this conversation. So then, Sarah, what advice would you give to athletes like Sophie?
Yeah, so I think that's, you just kind of made me think about it, Sophie, is I guess I should say that we're coming out with a bunch of advice for athletes and coaches and support staff and families and parents with this Whisper group that we've got, which is an initiative by High Performance Sport New Zealand. And interestingly, half the people I think that are there are male, which is great because we're trying to encourage athletes in general to talk about this with their male coaches because there is a big block there and a big barrier. So that's where we're trying to actually start those period conversations and actually, hey coach, I've got my period today. And for those like you, Sophie, if for example, if you know they go quite badly on their period day, hey, you're going to have a rest day from training today because you'd do that if you had a sore ankle. So just kind of changing those conversations to actually acknowledge that it's a really important thing. So we're hoping to be able to provide, seminars and educational advice and open up this topic of conversation with a range of experts. So it's all a work in progress, but that's the big conversations that are happening and will be part of the days after these conferences that are coming up.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah Beable. We look forward to seeing what comes out of this conference, and we will definitely talk to you again. We're keen to get more specific into this topic because we want our female athletes to be the best they can be.
Agree. Thank you so much for having me.
Cheers. That was Dr. Sarah Beable. Yes, it is, like you said, such a taboo subject, isn't it? It's just like nothing. It's not something we talk about in the sports realm, and predominantly, especially in cricket, coaches are men. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not a topic that we talk about openly.
No, not at all. And like I say, it is. It's sort of a little bit of an embarrassment, especially if there is a male coach and, they get a little bit awkward, you get a little bit awkward talking about it and things like that. But
it doesn't have to be like that.
No, not at all. And I mean, if we can have these sort of conversations, it opens it up. And she's dead right. I mean, if you're sore and you don't want to be going out, you wouldn't go out and train if you had a sore ankle, a sore shoulder. You wouldn't be doing it. You wouldn't be pushing your body because, injuries can happen when you're pushing it a little bit too fast. So same thing goes with us.
Well, there is some research to say that it's that women do get injured while menstruating more often than when they're not, which I find fascinating, and it's definitely an area that we will delve into the future. That's it for this episode of Fair Play. You can find more on wispsports.com, and don't forget to follow and like and share us on Facebook and Twitter at Wisp Sports. We would absolutely love to hear from you. You can also listen to some other of the fantastic podcasts coming from top sports journalists and athletes from around the world, covering every sport imaginable, from sailing to horse riding to cricket. And there's more than just cricket, we promise. Thank you to executive producer Chris Stafford, producer Laura Cohen, co-presenter Whitefern Sophie Devine. Go well. I'm Zoe George. Thanks again, and don't forget to play hard but fair.